Brilliant. Okay, so did anyone have any more questions for Yuri on that particular one? I mean, it might be interesting, Paul. Yeah, you felt that was a bit tight for you. What would you normally look at? So that you would...
I don't think there's enough margins in that deal, because at the moment GDVs are very hard to predict. I mean, that deal's kind of a year and a half, 2 years away. If you broke ground tomorrow morning, it's still a year and a half, 2 years away. And predicting GDVs at the moment, particularly in London, which is always a volatile market. It's a great market when it's great in London, and it's not so great when it's not so great. It's a very, I would say that across the UK, because people talk about the UK property market, and there's no such thing as the UK property market. There's UK property markets. So there's, the Scotland, north of England, south of England, Wales, Ireland, and London, right? London is as London and Aberdeen are the two most volatile markets. One is driven by oil prices, so Aberdeen kind of goes up and down based on oil prices, and London goes up and down based on how people feel, which is a very strange thing to bet on, how people are going to feel in 2 years' time. And it is. There's no practical reason why the prices go up in London, and no practical reason why the prices go down. It's very much based. It's very much based, like the stock market is, on people's feelings at the time. So I would not have thought, in the market that we are going into at the moment, a 25% margin in London is enough, because if London moves by 8 or 10% in the wrong direction, then that takes a 25% margin down to a kind of, somewhere around about 18% margin, 17% margin. And then if you have on the other end of that issues with supply and demand in terms of materials, then that could keep it up. So you could end up with a 10 or 12% margin on that. And that's a lot of money to put out for a small margin of that amount. So as an angel investor, that would be a very high risk project.
Presumably, if you were to do what Paul suggested earlier and get the future buyer to start paying for the project earlier, then you're going to not have any finance costs. So if you've got a cost of finance in that project and remove that, then that would make your
what I could see in here, as a must is the exit, and if we can structure the exit in terms of they put the deposit down, it's either 10 or larger percent, and him, because he's set up to do these developments, he's got his team, he's got everybody, then him developing it, we don't mind, because I'm based in London, he's based in Cumbria, I don't mind giving a hand, where I can and stuff. But that's the two major parts, is him developing and the exit to be nailed. And if we can structure it the way Paul just mentioned, then obviously there's no brainer in there. Then we've sold it, before we started to build. So
and they financed the build. So
they financed the build. So all we take is the margin. Whatever margin is there, is basically is just like a fee on the top of whatever you do, because you're doing it for them, you're building it for them.
I think if I was doing that deal, and if they have half decent solicitors, which they probably will do at these sort of numbers, what would probably happen is you'd have a minimum and a maximum.
Yeah.
Right. So because they're not going to want to commit to values 2.5 years or whatever amount down the line from here, or if they do, then that would be very, very good, particularly in this market. But what you're more likely to be able to do is say, well, look at the figures and say, we will sell you it for a minimum of X, right, depending on the market, or a maximum of X related to the current market value when the project is finished, right? Which means that the risk that they are taking is the market value drops below the minimum, and the risk that you're taking is that the market value usually exceeds the maximum. And that way, both people have got skin in the game in terms of taking the risk. To get them to commit at this point in time for values 2 years down the line at a set figure, they would have to have some very poor lawyers if they were willing to do that. Whereas if you say, look, this is the minimum value, and you know that you're making a profit at that value, and you have a maximum value, and they know that that's the most they will ever pay, and then you base the sale price, the actual sale price, on where the market is at the point in time when you're ready to hand over. That would be the way to structure that deal.
Yeah, I believe because that happened a few years back when China restricted, the money to leave the country, and the Chinese buyers put 10% deposits already, with exchange dates set up on, apartments in London, quite expensive apartments in London. And they couldn't get the money out of the lost.
But that with the current rules coming in from China, that would actually suit you. So for individuals, it's different for corporate, and if they set it up as a corporate organisation, there's not a problem with it. But for individuals at the moment, it's £50,000 per annum, right? But that would suit you because what you do is you time your years. So each individual investor can actually put £100,000 in over actually a few months, because it depends on the timing of the year. So there's ways round about it. We brought some money in from China fairly recently for one of my clients, and that's how we did it. Was we actually managed to bring £100,000 in for the client, but over 2 years. But it wasn't really 2 years; it was a matter of months between. So that was 1 year, and they were coming to the end of that year, and then put 50,000 in, and then another. It was actually 30,000. There's another 20,000 to come in this financial year. But if you're doing it as corporate, so if they set up in China that was a corporate organisation that was buying this property, then there's no limit to the amount of money that a corporate can bring from China into the UK.
Yeah, and there could be, a quantity surveyor. If they put all the money, into solicitors, and they release as we build, then it's a good security for them as well. And a quantity surveyor, can invoice them, as we go, and
Well, the safety for them, I know we're coming up to time, Emma, so I'll make this quick, but the safety for them is they would actually be acquiring the land from day one if you structured this properly. Essentially, as opposed to being a developer, what you then change into is you're a construction company that's working for them, right? And that way you make a fair amount of profit, but you take absolutely no risk. So that's the way I would structure that. You're essentially... They would own the land, so they've got security, and you're essentially a construction company working for them. Anyway, I'll hand over to Emma because I know we've only got a minute left.
Thank you. And
I never heard about any of my windswept and interesting and exciting deals.
I know. I think we need to come back. Yuri, I think you need to mute. I think we're getting some reverb from you. Sorry. Yeah, I know. And I had some things I really wanted to ask you as well. So maybe we'll come back and redo this again. But Helen's got a quick question. How many people, this is for you, Yuri, how many people are there waiting for a slice of the cake at the end of the project?
Well, I can see clearly that Paul wants, a little slice already.
I've always been a great believer of get a little slice of everybody's cake and you have a very big cake.
Yeah, this is why he is getting shaved all of the time, just before the meetings. Yeah, it depends who is involved, obviously. He's just a developer, and us if we can help him, obviously, this is it. And the financial costs, it depends where the money comes from. If it comes from the buyers, then we will, we'll waive that to them, so they'll have savings on that, so they will benefit from this. So it's not too many people just yet, but it's got a few sites as well, so it's not just one. It's got 3 sites in London and then 1 in Kent and then a few up in Cumbria, but that's his neck of the wood, you know. He is happy to do that on his own, but yeah, down in London, if we can start structuring this, he's got a few, and they're not very large, you know, not hundreds. 1 is 9, this one is 14, and that sort of size, but quite expensive apartments as we can imagine.
Brilliant.